right, greetings everyone. Welcome to Turning a Moment into a Movement. I am J Love, and I represent the Justice for Gerard Movement. Gerard is my son. We talk about him every week, but he's my son who was wrongfully convicted of a crime he didn't do, innocent, and he ended up going to prison for that crime. So, and because of that journey with him and all the people I met on that journey, I created this platform called Turning a Moment into a Movement with myself and some of my friends who I'm going to introduce or allow themselves to introduce themselves to you. We come here on Friday to talk about wrongful convictions and injustice. Our mission statement is to bring awareness to the wrongful convictions of Gerard and all others who are wrongly convicted, over sentenced, mentally ill, and medically frail in our community, to inspire, organize, and educate all communities about the needs to disrupt systems, policies, and patterns that of the criminal legal system that leads to wrongful convictions. And that's our motto, and that's why we come here every Friday to inspire and to educate. I want to say hello to those who are watching on Facebook, Instagram. Was Larry Smith on Instagram. Hey, Larry. Also, on those who are on Facebook, I think I mentioned Facebook, YouTube. Hey, and Twitter, X. Thank you guys for joining us. We have a very, very good, well, it's not so good, but we have a great guest that's going to come on. And we're going to talk about the wrongful conviction of Paul Clark. We're going to let you know who Paul Clark is and his story. And but before we do that, I'm going to introduce you to the panel. First of all, hey, Reverend Tia.
Well, hello. I will have my face on shortly, but I'm so glad to be here. Jay, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Well, I was going to say, how about you? But you're busy.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yes, I've been a busy bee, but I am excited to be here this evening. And every time you mention the purpose for turning a moment into a movement, I get excited all over again because we have to really look at our policies and practices that we participate in. And sometimes we participate in these policies and practices unknowingly that we are perpetuating a system that is unjust and marginalizing many people. And my goodness, not only convicting, killing, and not really hearing the voices of the people who the people are supposed to be serving, who leaders are supposed to be serving. And so I'm coming to you today from the Choice Zone. I am a practicing psychologist. But I laugh because it's not just being a psychologist, and I'm glad to say that I am an activist before being a psychologist. Before any label, I stand ready to help others to succeed and to right the wrong, I guess. Not knowing, Jay, that I would be able to walk this path with you. And so glad that we joined forces together on so many things. And definitely mentioning Michigan Coalition for Human Rights and the Choice Zone, which I am definitely the founder, and allowing people to make a shift in their minds toward their goals and their dreams is always your choice. And making sure that we take hold of our choices. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to walk with you. Thank you for the journey. And thank you for being so strong.
Well, thank you, Reverend Tia. Thank you for walking with me. This has been a journey, and it's still a journey, but I'm so glad to have you a part of this journey, and I'm glad of the work we're doing. Um, we started off just me and you having a conversation, and now we're just pushing forward, and we're doing, reaching people and telling stories and giving people power back by allowing them to be able to tell their stories. So
That's right. That's
that
right.
was it. And I want to say,
you.
oh, you're welcome. While we, Trisha, she's sick this week, so we sending some love to her. And Allie won't be with us this week, and we sending love to Allie. We'll see her next week. But we're gonna bring in our fan favorite, Tony Hugo Matt. Hey.
Look here. I know y'all can't tell, J Love, but I'm actually blushing right now. Okay. So look, excuse this little bit of cough I have. My enemies, foreign and domestic, trying to keep me down, but God is with us, so we here and thankful to God for the opportunity to be here. And J Love, every time I hear you talk about your journey, and I think about how you and I happen to meet, and I got a lot of good reasons to like my good friend Sam Riddle, but one of the best reasons I like him is because of him, I got the chance to meet you, so for all the people out there from yesteryear, to quote my good friend Sam Riddle, what the hell? So it's a beautiful thing. Dr. Hugo J. Mack here with you today, founder of the Freedom Line, I might add, the Freedom Line, and J Love, you said something to touch my heart a couple of weeks back ago. We talking about the Freedom Line. You said, well, I got to tell y'all, Abdul Hakeem had to call the Freedom Line myself. So J Love, but I'm honored to hear you say that because we're here together, and I done called your number many a time myself, Reverend Tia too, So proud to be with you today. The only member of a 44,000 member profession in the state of Michigan that does not consider you privileged to have me parachute from heaven to be with you tonight, but have come up from hell through the precious blood of God and Jesus Christ to be with you tonight. I know what it's like to pay a debt not owed. I know what it's like to be shunned, ridiculed. I know what it's like to have everything taken from you except the word of God and Jesus Christ. So I'm very, very honored to be here tonight. And J Love, I've shortened my presentation. So what I've done is I'm going to give you well, you know what I'm fitting to say, but I'm going to do it to the background tune of a lady that I had a chance to meet vicariously, although she never did answer my letter, Tina Turner. At a nightclub outside Detroit. I still don't know why she didn't write me back, but I'll put that behind me, J Love. I'll put all that behind me. But I would like to tell you some things about me to the background tune of the late great Tina Turner and a song that she made. If you find yourself on Trouble Boulevard, push, pull, tow, grab that hoopity. Come to Mack Street. Park in my virtual underground garage. And when you're there, dial the Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line. 734-239-3118. Because, J Love, at the end of the day, one thing is known. To Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. HMAClaw.com is your hookup. Now you tried the rest. Come on and get the best. So J Love, we're right here. And one final thing. If people say, J Love, is that man for real? Does he really mean what he's saying? My good answer. You're damn straight I do. So I'm proud to be here and honored to be here. And so we're going to go on and have a great discussion and keep on doing what we got to do. And one final thing. I love you. Thank you, Tina. Okay. So I love you.
We love you too. Hi, Karen Winston. Yeah, so we're going to get started today. I want to play this video before I bring on Mr. Abdul Hakeem. He's like family too when he comes here. Whenever he comes, He's just one of us. But before I bring him on, because what this video is going to show is what we're going to be talking about tonight. It's going to tell the story, kind of give us a back story to where Mr. Hakeem is going to go. So here's the video, you guys.
For people watching this who think finally justice because of these units, you say not so fast.
Well, it's a beautiful story. I'm so happy for Shamel Capers. I've been involved in multiple exonerations and prison releases, and I'm just so overjoyed for him and his family. But the problem is that we have such an epidemic of wrongful convictions. Serious scholarly estimates say that roughly 5% of all convictions are of the wrong person. With over 2 million people in prison, that's 100,000 people. So to have an isolated incident like that is a wonderful story, but we need to look at all the people whose cases we're never hearing about. And the problem with conviction integrity units is that it's the very same office that actually contributed to the wrongful conviction that we're asking to review itself. So while I applaud the Queen's DA, Melinda Katz, and she's done a tremendous job in this case and in many others, the problem is that the CIUs all around the country, most of them are doing absolutely nothing. So they've set up an office. There are 97 of them, but 46 haven't had a single exoneration. And most have had 1 or 2. Her office has had over 100, which is really remarkable. But what's troubling is that they give this false pretense that there's a serious review taking place. And for the people who just get ignored, and I'm involved in a case in Chester County, Pennsylvania, where we've, for 16 months, have been trying to get them to look at a case. They wouldn't even respond and acknowledge receipt of our case. And the evidence is sitting there ready to be tested. And it's been there for 24 years. We can't get a response. So it's troubling that many DA's offices are starting to create something that's giving the illusion of serious self-review, but there's no autonomy, there's no independence, and often there's very little fairness.
Because in some ways, this is a conflict of interest.
Exactly.
Because when you expose that this case was mishandled, then you're exposing the lack of care, the mismanagement of the case within the office.
Exactly, because the vast majority of proven exonerations by DNA had prosecutorial misconduct. So you're asking the very same office, often the very same people. It might have been their own cases or their colleagues. And so what's the incentive there?
So
typically it's to oppose testing, oppose review, oppose new evidence, oppose release.
So that's why this debate is a good one, and I'm glad we're having it. I'm going to push back on you a little bit. I just want to note in Shamel's case, it was a different DA and a different team of prosecutors. So the new DA comes in and says, we have to take a look.
Yeah.
But are you letting, Mark, the perfect scenario where we get equal justice under law, are you letting the perfect be the enemy of the good?
No, I want there to be more conviction integrity units, but I want them to have independence, autonomy, fair review. So it could be by appointing people who are former defense attorneys, appointing people from the Innocence Project and other organizations like mine that
People
work.
like you.
Exactly. I would have more faith if I knew that there were people who understand the real nature of wrongful convictions, who actually have had a stake in exonerations, to look at the misconduct in that very office. Instead, they just sort of put a wall around and say, trust us. I'm not going to trust the very same people who put countless, we're talking now, over 100,000 people in prison for crimes they didn't commit. That is deeply troubling if you care about truth and justice. And I don't think they're getting at it.
Is anybody getting it right?
Well, I think Philadelphia, actually, they've had many
Larry
exonerations
Krasner.
in Larry Krasner's office. I think in Queens, I really applaud this work that they've done. They actually hired a former attorney from the Innocence Project who's leading up the conviction integrity unit. So in my view, it's actually not a coincidence that that office is having more exonerations. Most of them, it's just one of their line prosecutors who's suddenly in charge of actually policing essentially themselves. And so in the smaller counties out there that we don't hear about, it's just injustice being compounded with this false pretense of review, and people are just getting buried, ignored. My mailbox is full of letters from people in prison begging to get their cases looked at. I look at as many as I can. We've been able to find so much more of a complete picture of truth, and in a few cases actually achieve justice. But honestly, working with conviction integrity units as they exist now has been really an exercise in despair.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know. And thank you for that story. It was important to hear Shmel's story. Mark Howard, thank you.
Thank you.
for
We
having me.
appreciate it very much.
So I'm going to bring on now Mr. Abdul Hakeem. Hi.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. Hi, Tia. Hey, Hugo, how you doing?
Good seeing you.
Good seeing you too.
So, Mr. Hakeem, what do you think about that video?
I mean, everything he said resonated with me, and it's things that I had been saying for the longest. I like the point that he raised that it's a conflict of interest to have the prosecutor's staff reviewing themselves. I think the term I use is it's the fox watching the hen house. That is one of the concerns I've always expressed, is that we're told to trust the very unit that sent these people to prison to put up this wall, like he said, and trust their process, which is a secret process.
Mm-hmm.
They have immunity in everything they do, but the defense has to turn over everything in their arsenal to their conviction integrity units, and then you wait 3 or 4 years after the case it does. And mind you, while this is going on, they got you thinking they're really working hard on your case. They are not. And by the time the prosecutor makes a decision, this is also interesting in case anybody didn't, people don't know this. Kim Worthy doesn't give a rationale why she denies relief, because she doesn't want to back herself in a corner. She just said, I'm not convinced that the evidence warrants relief. Relief denied. You can go and say, well, give me a reason. She's not going to do it. And that's the problem. Like this man said, there's no autonomy. There's no independence. It should be by a board of defense lawyers or innocent clinics should be looking at this case in conjunction with prosecutors. But you have an entire staff of prosecutors looking at the very cases that they prosecuted, and we wonder why the numbers are going down. We wonder why we got out in 2024 and we were in the first quarter. We wonder why in 2023, while we're hearing about the record number of people can't be released, and you know what? Miss me with that, okay? The 37 people she freed was years ago now. I'm tired of hearing about the same old stories. We want to see new faces and new cases. We're not seeing them. The numbers are not going up. They're going down. And like this man said, that's one of the problems with having prosecutors review their case that these people to prison on. And here's another risk. I learned in some of the cases we had in front of them, you have to bend over and give them everything, and you have to allow them to interview your witnesses and your client. I had a case where the conviction integrity unit insisted on interviewing the defendant on a case I was working on with the lawyer. And I told the lawyer, I said, I know you're not going to let that happen without you being present. He wasn't going to go into the interview until I raised that, and he ultimately did. There's ethical rules that bar an attorney from having contact with a represented party. This is the type of power and abuse that they have. And that's just the beginning of it. There's a lot of things wrong with it. And I also have a problem with them interviewing your witnesses. Your lawyer's not allowed to be present, but they'll have a team of prosecutors, private investigators, and in one case, we had the witness come back to us and said that they intimidated the witness. It turned into an interrogation as opposed to an investigation. They treated her like she was lying. They were trying to trap her. These are the things that they do. So again, I don't want to hear all the people she freed in Wayne County. Those stories are stale. Those stories are old. We want to hear about new cases and new faces, and we're not going to get it. We're not getting it. So at the end of 2024, I will be coming back and asking you people, are you happy with the numbers that you've seen in 2024? Because I think in 2023, she only freed 2 or 3 people. I think two.
Yeah, it wasn't that many. I think total last year was 6 in the whole state. So
1 inmate a month. And in the meantime, you're waiting while your case is sitting at the CIU for 3 or 4 years. What's the problem with that? Your claims are getting stale. Witnesses might disappear. And they're going to look at you and say, not our problem.
Or die. Witness can die.
Exactly. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk. And we keep hearing that they don't have funding. We keep hearing that they don't have the personnel. We keep hearing this. But the problem is they didn't estimate the number of cases of true wrongful convictions.
Yeah.
And if you hear them tell it, those 37, that's it. Nobody else that's it. We don't need it for anybody else. Be happy with that. Be happy with their stories. Celebrate their freedom. But people like Paul Clark, like that gentleman said, and I like that, he said, you don't hear about the cases where they denied relief and they should have. That's
So
why.
yeah, I was going to go there. Like, who is Paul Clark? And because I read what you sent me, and I was like, wow. But for our viewers' sake and for Reverend Tia and Attorney Matt, who is Paul Clark and what's his story?
Paul Clark was convicted in 1987 here in Wayne County. He was arrested in Highland Park for a murder he did not commit. I know we hear that phrase a lot, but I'm telling you, he didn't commit this and this. He's been locked up since 1987 for a murder that new evidence today shows an alternative suspect committed the crime. New physical evidence, not that Paul made up, that the Conviction Integrity Unit itself turned over to him. Kim Worthy's own Conviction Integrity Unit found the evidence that showed Paul was innocent, and they still did not let him go. They forced him to judicial review, and he recently got a victory from the court. The court awarded him a new trial. You want me to get into the facts a little bit? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. On February 2nd, 1987, there was a victim. His name was Trifu Visilaji. He was coming out of a bar in Highland Park, and it was a random robbery. He was lured to the robber by a prostitute in the bar, and the guy had a gun. His name was Alex Scott. And Mr. Visilije put up a struggle and was shot and killed. The facts at trial, however, showed, well, let me say this, because I'm going to go into some Brady stuff. All of this didn't come out at trial. The facts at the crime scene showed that when the police arrived there, Mr. Visilije had a hook knife in his hand with bloodstains on it. And they could tell there was a struggle. He slashed his killer across the face. Mr. Clark does not have a scar on his face and never did. Six weeks after that murder, the killer, Alex Scott, was arrested with a fresh scar slashed across his face. He lived in that neighborhood. He committed similar robberies in the neighborhood, and that was his MO. He would have prostitutes lure these victims outside of bars, and he would rob them. Mm-hmm. Mr. Scott, who had a history of arrests, didn't have that scar on his face until after the Visilije murder. 3 months after that murder, Mr. Scott committed another murder in only 2 blocks away from there, using the same modus operandi. He had a prostitute lure the victim outside of the bar into the trap where he robbed him. The victim put up a struggle, and he was shot and killed too. You see where this is going? Mm-hmm. It's called similar acts evidence. And it's a rule of law that says if there's, and they use it for identification purposes, because the key in Paul's case was who did it. There was no physical evidence that tied Paul to the crime. Let me get that out there right now. He didn't confess. So the case against him was very weak, as the judge noted in his opinion. It was all circumstantial evidence. But the evidence does point to Alex Scott as the killer. And again, the CIU is the one that uncovered this evidence. The Conviction Integrity Unit, and they still didn't let him go. 3 months after that murder, Mr. Scott committed another murder only 2 blocks away using the same modus operandi. Mr. Scott pled guilty to that murder, and he admitted he used a prostitute to lure the victim outside where he robbed and shot and killed the victim. In the course of 30-something years, Mr. Clark insisted on his innocence. He filed all his appeals. He filed several motions for relief from judgment. While Paul was in prison in 1990, Mr. Scott and another inmate were talking about that scar on his face, and he stupidly confessed to that inmate what he did in killing Mr. Visilije. That inmate, several years later, ran across Paul ran into Paul in another prison and provided an affidavit when he realized Paul didn't commit the crime. And keep in mind, this was before anybody knew about that mugshot that the CIU only found out 4 years ago. When that inmate provided, in other words, when that inmate provided that affidavit, he didn't know there was a mugshot with Mr. Scott's slash on his face. So that unraveled a lot of things in 2020 when the Conviction Integrity Unit found that 1987 photo with the slash across Mr. Scott's face. They presented a recommendation to Kim Worthy to let Paul go. She refused, told him to go to, take your claims before the court. He did, and the judge recently granted him relief and ordered him a new trial. Mr. Clark's case, like many others, are the cases you don't hear about in Detroit media. You won't hear about it unless he gets released. But you should hear about these cases while they're struggling. You should hear about these cases. You should hear about the dirt that they're doing while they're doing it. You should hear about the secrecy with which they're doing these reviews when they're doing it. And you don't think everything is going great by continuously hearing about these 37 people she freed, the last of which were a few years ago. So the judge found all that evidence in Paul's case compelling enough that he granted his motion for relief from judgment and ordered him to be given a new trial. And I'm open to any questions.
He's not home, right?
Not yet. He was awarded a new trial. They're waiting to. They're in pre-trial now, and my understanding is he'll be coming up for a bond hearing. He's eligible for a bond, but the ball is back in Kim Worthy's court, and I hope I would think that they do a risk assessment in the prosecutor's office, and what I mean by that is they do a risk assessment to determine whether they can get a conviction or not. Is it worth the risk to put this man through a trial given the age of his conviction with all this new evidence that shows an alternative suspect today? Are you going to put the taxpayers through this and let this man go? And let me say this. The evidence of his innocence in his case is more compelling than some of those people she freed. On a scale of things, because we're not talking about just one single affidavit that a witness waited years to come up with. And by the way, this witness's affidavit, it was credible because, again, the mugshot shows that Mr. Scott indeed had that scar across his face 6 weeks after the Vasile murder. And before then, in other police mugshots, he never had that scar. The judge found it compelling enough to warrant a new trial, and the police knew that there was an alternative suspect at the time they arrested Paul, and they didn't provide this material exculpatory evidence over to the defense. That was Brady. That was the essence of the Brady claim. Highland Park Police, once they made the arrest, like all police do, they don't want to admit their mistake that they arrested the wrong guy. They put him through the trial, and he was wrongfully convicted of it. 37 years.
Yeah. Go ahead,
So, Abdul, I want to know, and I want the viewers to know too. So you're saying that he could now be eligible for bond?
On a relief from judgment, a defendant, once they make a substantial showing of innocence, they are eligible for bond. It's rare, but it has happened in Michigan on first-degree murder convictions where you can get you're eligible for a bond. And I'm going to tell you, this judge is going to let him get out on a personal bond. This is the same judge that spanked the police for not turning over this exculpatory evidence of the mugshot that they had 37 years ago. Yes, you can petition the court for a bond while Kim Worthy makes a decision whether she wants to take the risk or a gamble of putting you through a trial all over again.
Okay, so tell me this. So the bond means that he would have to put up some monies, is what you're saying?
Not necessarily. He can get out. He would be eligible for a personal bond. He's a pauper. The man's been in prison for 37 years. He doesn't have $50,000, and his family doesn't have. So I have seen cases. I know 2 murder cases in the past 10 years where Wayne County judges let defendants get out on personal bond on a murder case, but in the same at the same procedural step where they granted relief from judgment, not when they're first charged. When you're first charged with murder, you know, if the judge feels you're a danger to the community, you're a flight risk, and a lot of other factors, they generally won't give you a bond. So it depends on the nature of the crime, depends on the facts, and at what stage the case is in.
And so, Kim Worthy, these cases are not coming before the public eye.
No, and that's intentional. That's intentional. They don't want you to know about. Paul Clark wasn't the only one. Dwayne, you know what? I know of some other cases where the evidence of these defendants' of their innocence was compelling enough, like in Paul Clark's case, where the prosecutor's office refused to grant them relief. And one of the things I learned is it's not so much the conviction integrity unit. The conviction integrity unit recommends they be released. It's Kim Worthy who doesn't want them. She goes against her own CIU's recommendation. And again, never gives a reason. And she doesn't. That's strategic. She's not going to box herself in. She only has to say is, I'm not satisfied that the evidence shows a substantial likelihood of evidence, relief denied. Well, you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, she's not going to give you specifics because the case is now teed up for evidentiary hearing and for appeal purposes.
But I just think that shows a conflict to me, a very obvious conflict of interest, to have the prosecuting attorney even have a say-so on what the integrity unit is supposed to be authorizing. I just think we need to revamp that whole thing.
Right. Well, that's part of the problem, like that gentleman said on that video, with prosecutors reviewing their own cases that they prosecuted. It is a conflict of interest. And that's a concern I've always expressed, that, okay, the idea is good, but we're told to trust the very same people who wrongfully convicted these guys, because as quiet as it's kept, and Kim Worthy has never conceded this, but we know better, it's not always Detroit police that frame these people. They do it with the help of the prosecutors. Why is Molly Kettler still working at her office, who wrongfully convicted some of those guys that Kim Worthy freed? She was in cahoots with the police. In fact, she got a promotion up to the appellate division or something. But why are they moving these people around who are corrupt, or moving them up to the attorney general's office, to the high office in the highest law enforcement office in the state? And they know that these are serious people. But have you ever noticed Kim Worthy has never admitted in any of these cases that there was prosecutorial misconduct? That's the conflict of interest. That's the problem with the fox watching the hen house. So you gotta ask yourself, is it always Detroit police? There's some dirty prosecutors too, It was Mary Waterston, whatever her name was 10 years ago, wasn't the only one, and she went to prison out of Wayne County. But anyway. Yeah. But yeah, it is a conflict of interest. It's a problem. I like the idea of having a truly independent review, who is not the prosecutors, who are like innocent clinics reviewing these cases, and bringing some integrity, some transparency. There's no transparency in this.
Right.
There's no transparency, because when you look at the facts in Paul Clark's case, you're like, oh my God. And when you contrast that with some of the people she let go based on police misconduct, and by the way, she never said those guys were innocent. She specifically said, this is not an exoneration, but I'm just letting them go because there's police misconduct. But here's Mr. Clark, who has police misconduct plus evidence of innocence, and he doesn't get out.
Right.
And he's not the only one. There's hundreds. But they keep pushing those images of the ones that they freed they keep putting them in your face to give you false hope.
Yeah, because every time someone is exonerated, you hear them say, there's others. You always hear them say that. Now, we might not see it on the opposite end, but when they come out of there, they're telling you there's others. There's a lot of them.
Well,
And
there
so,
Mhm.
and so when we don't hear these cases of the other ones, like you said, we just hear those are the ones who came home. We don't hear what's in progress or who's looking, or the cases that might be up for review. We don't hear about them unless a family member or someone, an advocate, tells these stories. We never know about them.
And the
So
ones
it's
who came home, and the ones who came home know about it, and shame on them. They should be speaking up for people like Mr. Paul Clark. By the way, they've been blowing up his J-pay when the judge granted him relief, but they were nowhere to be found at the evidentiary hearings when he was really fighting for his life. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real. There's another innocent man right now being railroaded in Detroit. Michael Jackson Bolanos, who allegedly killed that Jewish woman at the synagogue. Nobody's showing up to support him. They're going to wait till he's wrongfully convicted, and then everybody's going to raise a fuss. Paul White told me they're blowing up my J-pay now. When I needed them, none of these guys were there. Hello, he sees it. He's not lying. Yeah. The time to support is when they're fighting for their freedom, not when they get victory. And all of a sudden, you want to act like you were always in their corner. How sick is that? It's pathetic.
Yeah.
Why is Roberto here today speaking up for somebody like Paul Clark and not the ones who came home? But they want to be on the scene when victory comes. That's wrong. That is
Mm.
wrong.
Yeah.
That is wrong. So it's not just the media that's not telling these stories. The exonerees know it because let me tell you something. The prison grapevine, everybody talks. Yeah, this one man got some action, or this one brother didn't get no action.
Mm-hmm.
And that came out of Mr. Clark's mouth. He said, yeah, they're blowing up my J-pay now. Some of these guys, I didn't hear from them in years.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it hurts. It hurts to know that, But I've been advocating for him before he got victory because, and a lot of people, because I'm thinking the system is not working right. It's dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
It's not working. So I'm not there just to celebrate Paul, and I was when he got his victory. I was there at the hearings, not knowing if he would win, because I work in a profession that I feel I'm ashamed to say, actually, I really am, that I work in a profession that does this to innocent people. And the people who are innocent and came home should be showing up at these hearings, not on the day that the guy walks out. You should be showing up on the day he's on his evidentiary hearings. You should be marching to Jim Worthy's office saying, how could you do this to my brother Paul? How could you do this to my brother Dwayne Ballinger? How could you do this now, what you're doing to Michael Jackson Bolanos? They set him up for killing that Jewish woman. They had to because the public was angry. So once they set their sights on him, which is what they did in a lot of these other cases, like they did to Devontae Sanford. Once the police set their sights on you, and once they set their sights on Paul Clark, you're done. They're not going to admit mistakes because that's their arrogance. They're not going to do it. They're not going to admit their wrongdoing. They're not even going to say, you know what? We apologize. We arrested the wrong person. We're going to let you go. That arrogance that's their sin.
Come here, Attorney Matt.
Well, I've been listening several things. Okay, several things. First of all, 99% of people that y'all celebrate as being exonerated is not true.
They're not exonerated.
It's not true. See, you remember the TV series The Fugitive?
Mm-hmm.
That fictional Dr. Richard Kimball. Okay.
Right.
Now, when that one-armed man was finally found to have been the actual killer of his wife, Richard Kimball was exonerated. That's an exoneration. Anytime you have somebody whose convictions reversed for evidentiary reasons or prosecutorial misconduct, something, perjured testimony, withholding Brady material, okay? And those people are released from prison. That is not an exoneration. I hate to tell you all that. That is not an exoneration. Why? Because it is not a statement by the courts, the prosecutor, or the legislature. This person didn't do it. This person didn't do it. All an exoneration in 99% of the cases mean this conviction has been reversed and it is unlikely this person will be charged again. Okay? It is never, you will never find Kim Worthy or any other prosecutor 99.99% of the time saying, you know what? We were wrong. This person had absolutely nothing to do with this. We were plain and simply wrong. We got it wrong. There's a man running for president right now, even after the Central Park Five were exonerated through DNA testing, said these men should be executed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got the leader of a political party that says that, and damn near 45% of the country is riding with him, what is that telling you? Okay, what is that telling you? What that's telling you is that these people that are incarcerated are throwaways. That's what that's telling you. These people are in other words, they're disposable. They're expendable. And while I'm happy for people who shouldn't be in prison being released, I'm not happy when I see these exonerees. They form these groups and they talk about I was exonerated, and what have you. That gives kind of like a false hope, because on 99.9% of these quote unquote exonerations that I've seen, the prosecutor reserves the right to bring them charges again. Okay? The prosecutor reserves the right to bring them charges again. So let me tell you something, folks. Unless your case has been dismissed with prejudice, don't be so quick to raise that flag and celebrate. Okay, don't be. Now the odds are the case will never come again. That's the overwhelming odds. But so that's my pushback against some of these quote unquote exoneree groups. Okay, and then now the other thing is that in terms of the police, they will never, ever to infinity ever admit they were wrong, because a deliberate act in violation of a person's constitutional rights, that can lead to a 1983 action, folks, in federal court. Okay. And that also can be a escapeway around qualified immunity too, I might add. Okay. So they will never, ever do that. Okay. So, but now on a positive side, I can only speak for Washtenaw County. There have been some measures that are encouraging. For example, the county commissioners have agreed to fund a separate division in the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Attorney's Office, our conviction integrity unit. They agreed to fund that. So, in my candidacy, when I ran for prosecutor in 2020, my position was I will sacrifice part of my own salary. Coming from the penitentiary, I'm used to living on nothing, y'all, okay, to be able to try to fund at least one attorney, independent attorney, to work on a conviction integrity unit. So one good thing about Washtenaw County, they have authorized the funding, so Prosecutor Savitt doesn't have to work that in, take somebody out of misdemeanors or felonies. And plus, when you have a prosecutor, I like what I hear about the prosecutor in Philadelphia. I studied his work when I was running for prosecutor, that are bold and brave enough to stand up and say, there's a lot of corruption in this system. Okay. But prosecutors that do that normally run the ire of police unions. Okay. Police unions. You remember the black guy in Atlanta? He was, I don't know if he fell asleep in a Burger King drive up. And the police came to investigate, and there was a scuffle, and he tried to run, and they shot him in the back and killed him. Remember that? That? Okay. Well, the prosecutor that was bringing charges against those officers, they rallied against him, primering him. And I'm not sure what happened in that election, but what I'm saying is he ran the ire of hundreds of thousands of dollars in monies going to his opponent. Same thing with Fani Willis, I might add. Okay. Same thing with Phony Willis in Georgia, when some of these prosecutors are brave enough to say, we will go after people in government, okay? And we don't care how high you are in government, police included, okay? So what I'm saying is that I can just speak of some positive things in Washtenaw County, and not that everything is positive and great in Washtenaw County, no system is, but at least the county commissioners have taken it on themselves to say, we are at least going to acknowledge a problem. See, I'm not sure what's going on with the Wayne County commissioners. I'm sure they could allocate more funds to Kim Worthy. I don't know if she's even asking for more funds. I don't know, the hierarchy of all that. You guys know much better than me, but at least that's a positive start. And then one of the other things I wanted to mention is that under the state constitution, if you're convicted in circuit court, you've got an automatic right to appeal to the Court of Appeals, okay? So everybody that's been exonerated has been through the system. They've gone to the Court of Appeals. They've tried to go to get leave to appeal to the Supreme Court. 98% of those are denied, I might add. Tried to go to federal court, on a habeas action and been turned down. And so we have decades and decades and decades of a struggle. But the problem is a cultural one, all right? It's a cultural one. And it starts with the citizens themselves, okay? It starts with the citizens themselves. And for 5 years of doing this, most people, and they won't admit it to you, that come into a jury on a jury veneer, they've got a feeling this person wouldn't be here unless they were guilty. Because you see, what happens is it's kind of like being a parent, okay? Nobody wants to say their baby is ugly, and nobody wants or admit their baby is ugly. Okay, they may know it, they'll never admit it. Admit their baby is ugly, and you better not say nobody else's baby is ugly either. Although I'm sure all of y'all have seen some ugly ass babies, and so it's like when they grow up and go to school, you know what? If you follow them ugly kids home, you're gonna find two ugly parents. So I'm sorry. So what I'm saying is, part of the problem is that paternalistic and maternalistic attitude that we as a people have, because we elect those judges, we elect those prosecutors, we pay those police officers' salaries, we pay for their vacations, we pay for their cars, we care for their kids' dental care, we pay for that, we pay for the courtroom. So it's in us. We don't want to believe that what is a part of us is wrong. See, and that's the greatest challenge I have in selecting a jury, to get people to admit, Attorney Mack, I got to be honest. I don't know why everybody would be in here if something didn't happen. Okay, and where there's smoke, there's fire, and I thank them people from the bottom of my heart, and I give them their ticket out the courtroom.
Attorney Mack,
yeah,
we're literally paying for our own demise.
Of course we are, but see, we're doing it so voluntarily, J Love. So, like I said, it starts with the citizens, because if you held judges accountable in these races, if you put money up to have somebody go against them, to at least make them look at the issue of racial disparity, as long as you going by to get along, it's going to keep on going. So you've got people on that jury who don't want to believe a wrongful conviction could be afoot. They go ahead, get a conviction. The judges are all running for prosecutor or sheriff. They go ahead and sentence. The Court of Appeals all running for sheriff. They go on and affirm the conviction. The Supreme Court goes, look, we overloaded. We're only going to grant relief for review to 3%. So look, the bottom line is, folks, once you get past that circuit court level and you go on up, you got a 98% chance of staying right where you are, no matter what you do, because the system is designed to be that way. It is. And I tell young people that all the time. So a lot of my focus is, it's a rigged game. Don't play. If you got to bite your tongue and walk away from the cops, or just don't say nothing when they confront you, do it. Okay. I tell people all the time, we'll deal with the police in court, not on Michigan Ave. Okay. Not on Michigan Ave. So anyway, that's it for the moment, y'all. I'll let somebody else talk.
So, I want to say this, you guys. So when you have a person, first of all, it seems like these newer prosecutors are coming in with fresh eyes and that are looking at stuff and seeing the injustice, seeing that, you know, the biases and everything. They're coming in focusing on making a difference. They understand the systemic issues in those areas. And then you have people who've been doing these jobs 20, 30, 40 years, right? Well, hopefully not 40, but I'm just saying, you know, you have these people who've been in these jobs forever. And so they get immune, kind of, to what's going on, and everybody is criminalized, no matter what it is. You know, you just go through, it's like an assembly line to justice. And so you got all these people who are, these my buddies. I've been working with them for 10 years, or they retired when I know them, you know, and so it's really, and Sam used to say, you brought Sam up early, but it's really you versus the entire state of Michigan, right? And so you got all these people who are buddies, and they see these familiar names, and they knew, because what year was this, Mr. Hakeem? 87?
87.
So that's 80s, late 80s and 90s is when there was a lot of corruption going on, and a lot of, and these cities that was predominantly Black. We already know that, right?
Right.
So
Consent decrees. Let's not forget about the Detroit Police Department and consent decrees. Let's not forget about that.
Right, and I'm sure
that was one of the reasons why they were put. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So we already know that it was a biased, systemic culture going on during this time. So you have these cases coming up from the 80s, and you're denying them. You're denying somebody who's been in there 37 years, who has, who you knew. You dug up the information that proved his case. And so to reject him or send him, not give him the benefit of being exonerated, what does that say about that office?
And you know what? The other problem with that is, by the time that the prosecutor's office denies you relief after you go through the CIU process, and they say, oh, it's nothing to worry about, but I beg to differ. Because now guess what? You got to go back in front of that judge who knows that the CIU turned you down. He's human, right? Or she's human. That's a strike against you, because that judge is already subconsciously, there's some prejudicial thoughts in his mind or her mind that, well, if you were innocent, the CIU would have freed you. You know, even though they'll swear, oh no, I can be fair. You know, we're gonna start with a clean slate. We're gonna put all the evidence on. You know, we're gonna put all the evidence on. But in Paul's case, by the grace of God, we did have a judge who disagreed with Kim Worthy's office, and he ordered him a new trial. He did even better than that. He did even better than the 37 who got released, because Kim Worthy didn't give them an exoneration finding. This judge, he gave Paul a home run. He agreed that there was a substantial likelihood that he's actually innocent. And I don't know about you, Mr. Mack, but in my experience, most judges don't go that far. If they can stop at the Brady finding, they will not, you know, judges are, I won't say scared, but they don't have the courage to go that far and say, oh yeah, this guy is innocent. He all but said that about Paul Clark.
Yeah. We'll see, brother. Everything that you're describing in terms of that personality type can be summed up in one word: politician. Okay, you have to remember, judges are elected.
They're elected. Yep.
Okay, district court judges elected, circuit court judges elected, court of appeal judges elected, Supreme Court judges elected. And what I'm saying is that as long as there's a community that remains voiceless and voteless, i.e. Black and brown communities, all right, it doesn't matter what you think, because you don't vote, or you don't vote in numbers enough to impact. And they know that. They know that. So you see, so as long as we, and all Black people, listen up, I'm talking directly to you. As long as we continue to let people bullshit us and tell us your vote don't mean nothing. It ain't gonna change nothing. All these people, they don't love you no way, you know, what have you, and tell you that this man with the orange hair loves you. Buy some of these yellow ass gym shoes he got, okay, you know, or else go back and find some of the more rancid ass steaks he was selling, or maybe you can get your bogus ass degree from that university that went defunct, or all them black people that wasn't allowed to get in housing when him and his daddy was putting C on them. See, don't get me started, y'all. Look, Democrats, send money to Cash App Hugo Mack right now for this announcement.
But also, the other key thing is judges get money from police unions.
Of course they do. Of
So
course
they're
they
not
do.
going to be like going against them.
Of course
you know, especially if they're going to be elected. They
Of
get
course
their
they do.
money from them.
And J Love, let me just add something else into that. There's a Supreme Court case, what is that? I don't know, maybe 12 years ago, 15 years ago, Citizens United, okay? Where the Supreme Court said a corporation, remember now, a corporation is a fictional entity. It's a construct. It's made by legislature, you know. The only thing they can't do is vote, okay? They can't vote, okay? But they said that corporations got a right to free speech and money is part of free speech. So ever since they did that, they opened the door for these right-wing companies, Chick-fil-A and all them other kind of, look here. They could be giving Chick-fil-A sandwiches out up on Michigan Ave. I ain't getting a damn one because I know the background. I know the background. You know, I'll go to background. I'll go back to my old standby, old tore up ass McDonald's if I have to do that. Although I got a problem with them because they're against the working wage. So I might turn vegan. I don't know. So anyway, and the problem is there's only one way to overcome money, and that's with a vote. You hear me? You can overcome them with a vote, you know? So black people, keep on listening to that bull crap, you know, about ain't no need for you to go out there. Keep on listening to that. And when your black heads are getting cracked, okay, and these police is walking away, don't call me. Well, actually, I do want you to call me, but philosophically, don't call me. In reality, call me.
I'm through. But
okay, I'm through. I'm sorry.
So I just want to say this, you guys. We're talking about your local people.
That's right.
We are so vested into the president and those elections. And we stay home on the elections that really count, that really have something to do with our everyday life. The prosecutor, the judges, all of these people have something to do with your everyday life, how you live. And you don't even go concern yourself about them or vote for them or look up or educate yourself about them. Like, we're doing our own self a disservice when we stay at home when these local elections are so important. This is how you get change locally, but I don't know why we're disconnected with the local.
And we also have to divorce ourselves from this attitude that I don't want to be involved with the judicial system. I don't want to respond to that jury questionnaire.
Right.
It's going to take up my time. You know.
Yeah.
That is the attitude that, oh, I got to go down to the court and sit on a jury. You know what? That's very important because ever since we got rid of Recorder's Court,
that's right.
This was a racist move.
That's right.
Merged the County Circuit Court. It's no surprise you got all white jurors.
That's right.
You know, determining the fate of African Americans now.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
They intended this result because, like Mr. Mack said earlier, they know that they can run a game on us, and we don't. And we got this attitude that I don't care. I don't want to be involved. Not just voting. A lot of things that, again, just responding to those jury questionnaires, it is important. It is a big thing.
That's right.
It is because what if you're facing criminal charges?
That's right.
Right.
And you look up and you see all white jurors judging you. You'll think about that. Now you threw in the trash can because you did the same thing. We got to stop we got to stop that. Oh, I don't care attitude, because it
That's
goes
right.
a long way. It goes a long way. You're serving on a jury, and you might even find one of your fellow is guilty, but at least you did your duty, and you want to believe you did it honestly, right? That's
right.
why it's important. You look up in Wayne County now, you see all white jurors, because non-Detroit jurors, they respond to those questionnaires. And then you get scared, like, oh, look what I got judging. Look, my fate is in the hand of 12 people who don't even live in my community.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
But when we go down there, we make excuses to leave or get out of there, or
We go down there as defendants or witnesses.
right.
It's not good. And you should be a witness to an extent. Wait a minute. I don't. It depends. Okay. But if you have evidence that exonerates somebody, there's another problem in these cases. You notice these witnesses take years to come forward. To an extent, I understand that, because there's a fear factor. Yeah, you get labeled as a snitch. It's one thing to snitch and lie, but if you know what? But if you know somebody innocent is getting ready to get sent to prison. We have that in one of the cases I'm working on now. The witness wants to help now, but she never came forward. She never came forward when it was time to come forward. When what? He was on trial.
Right.
Now she wants to help. Nobody wants to. The person, the prosecutor's going to say she's not credible. It took her forever to come forward.
Right. And see, another thing, that's important to remember, is that when it comes to the community, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. Black people have had the worst mojo run on us in the history of civilization. You hear me? In the history of civilization. Because we have been so eager to prove ourselves, loving this country, want to be American. We unfortunately have adopted an attitude that is whiter than 99% of white people. I remember somebody having the audacity to ask me if I was voting for Barack Obama just because he was black. Do you know how insulting that is to me? Because you see, he's running against, the second time, a man named Mitt Romney from Utah. You and I can fit the black people in Utah in a phone booth. So what I'm telling you is, nobody asked me if anybody was voting for Mitt Romney because he was white and from Utah. See, so what I'm saying is, we are so indoctrinated, we find ourselves, and I spoke to other black people, putting themselves in a position of defending, oh no, I'm not just voting for Barack Obama because he's black. I mean, race shouldn't have nothing to do with it. Race had everything to do with it, y'all. I hate to tell y'all that. Race had everything to do with it, okay? So what I'm saying is, the problem is, in our black communities, we are so eager to show that we want to be accepted. We will go to another man's store because the ice is colder, the water is wetter, okay? Then patronizing where you live and respecting where you live. Everybody's community is good except yours, okay? Except yours. And so we, being the victims of crime, black people are victimized by other black people, by the way, just as whites are victimized by whites and Hispanics by Hispanics. The truth of the matter is, y'all, when it comes down to some of these charges, you got a lot of black people rooting for conviction, okay? You really do, because their house has been broken into, they've been carjacked, their daughter been molested up at the park, and the person was never found. And it's part of human nature. And, as a practitioner, I deal with that all the time. And I've had judges shut me down. Mr. Mack, you're getting too personal on the questions. But I have to. Because I don't want that juror projecting the wrong that happened to them or their family member on my client. He don't even know you. Okay, so
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a problem, y'all, but I'm sorry. A lot of it starts with us, J. Love and Pamela.
It does. I agree, Attorney Mack, because people, do you know how many people said to me, how you know he didn't do it? How you know he didn't do it? Before they even asked me what happened.
Wow.
Before they even asked me, how did this happen to him? Before they even thought that somebody could be wrongfully convicted, we automatically think, well, and I have heard people who said this too, well, they had to do something. So we have our own biases against each other. You know, we don't even think what we should think, because history has shown us that this happens on a regular basis. People are accused of things that they didn't do, even if it's a ticket that you got unjustly. You know, somebody said you ran a red light. I did not run a red light. You know, even if it's something as little as a ticket, injustice can happen to you. But we rather go with the narrative that you had to do something, or this is the other thing. You got to stay out of the way. Well, you got to stay out of the way. You got to be out of the street, so you can't hang around with. We have also seen cases, even with Paula's husband, who was 400 miles away, you know, accused of a crime. He wasn't even in the vicinity or the area where this crime occurred, but they made up a whole story about how he got on a plane and he was like it was like they made up a story like a movie for somebody who didn't even have enough money to get on a plane. But these are the things, but we in our minds, for the people on the outside looking in, always think that, well, you had to do something. You had to be there. They just don't arrest people for, yes, they do. Yes, they do. They make up stories. When you're the focus of the investigation, they lose all sight. And probably with Mr. Paul Clark case, they decided, hey, this is this guy. We're not going to even bring up that other guy because this is the guy. Even though they knew that this other guy was going around robbing people, him and this prostitute was going around, you know, that was their thing, you know, and the person who, if you resist that, you know, this robbery, then he's going to shoot you and probably kill you. This is what they were doing, and those police in that neighborhood knew that. But they arrested this man and had him in prison for 37 years. And it was seen like when this judge said, hey, this guy is innocent, the prosecutor in good faith should have said, you know what, let him go. Let him go home. But he still has to wait. You know, he still got to go to a process. He's still inside of a prison, innocent.
And what hope does that give the viewers out there, the listeners, who have their brother or their husband's case pending in front of the CIU right now?
Ooh.
Ask yourself that. If they could do this to Paul Clark, what hope is there? And every case is fact specific. I get it. Every case is different. The facts are different. In some cases, the facts are stronger and weigh in favor of the defendant. Some cases not. But if ever a defendant should have been freed at the CIU, it's his. And they did not let him go. And I'm not placing the entire blame on the CIU, because my understanding is they recommended Kim Worthy free him. They recommended, as a matter of fact, you all don't know, they recommended freedom for a lot of people. And you don't know about it, right? The media is not going to report it. Don't report those cases. But when Joe Blow gets free next week, everybody's going to get the party balloons out. And everybody's going to be, oh, yeah, look how great the prosecutor is. I'm so sick of this mental gymnastics, the mental psychological games. But that's my question to you people who have your cases in front of the CIU. If they did this with Paul Clark, and mind you, I'm not talking about the run-of-the-mill cases of the people she let go based on a single affidavit. And the police, naughty, I gotta let him go because the police didn't tell him about this woman that lived down the street. But Paul Clark's case has that plus evidence of innocence. Even the judge went that far to say he agreed the man was innocent. And you don't get that often.
Right.
So think and think about what I said earlier also. The other risk, and Mr. Mack, you may agree or not, but in my experience from the cases I've had in front of the CIU, you have to give them the entire arsenal of your new evidence. and your witnesses. You have to let them be interviewed. You have to let them interview your witnesses. You have to be polygraphed by their polygrapher, who, by the way, is a dirty snake. That Jim Hop, you guys didn't hear what he did last summer to this Oakland County defendant? It was in the news. Floyd Galloway.
No.
He went and got Jim Hop, who the conviction integrity unit in Wayne County is using to polygraph all of these defendants, took the results of a polygraph and told the police chief in Troy what the defendant disclosed to him during the polygraph, and based on that, they got a search warrant to search the guy's home and found and confiscated evidence and charged him with murder. As a polygrapher, now people wonder what was wrong with that. What's wrong with that? He's regulated by LARA. Polygraphers are licensed. That's like medical malpractice. He wasn't supposed to do that. The defendant was the client who hired you. You had a client confidentiality at polygraphs. You're not supposed to be disclosing that to the police and prosecutors, but he did. And the CIU in Wayne County is using the guy to polygraph people. So that's another risk. You have to hand them your client on a platter and your witnesses, all of your discovery evidence, your new evidence. Mm-hmm. And by the way, mm-hmm. Don't you ask the prosecutor for anything, because they're going to tell you, "Oh no, we can't give you that. That's privilege. That's work product." How is that a level playing field? The defense attorneys are allowing this sham to go on. They're throwing their client to the wolf, giving him what the guy said on that video earlier, false hope. Mm-hmm. You know, she's got this unit now, so she's trying to help you. Okay, well, she has I mean, mm-hmm. I'm not asking much, but I know there's more than 2 innocent people a year in prison. And we're not even getting 1 inmate a month released. Yeah. So what am I missing here?
Well, there's no accountability, no checks and balances. There's nobody who can go back and check, or nobody to regulate it. Who's regulating it?
It's an arbitrary process. Mm-hmm. Arbitrary process. There's no supervision. There's no autonomy. It's an arbitrary process where the prosecutor ultimately decides. And again, like I said, she doesn't have to give you a reason, and don't ask her. She's not going to give you a reason. I just don't, I'm not convinced that the evidence satisfies our standards. And you'll be like, what the hell does that mean? Go figure it out. I'm not going to tell you. And then you're mad now because your loved one's case sat there and collected dust for 3 years.
Not longer.
Right, now you're mad. You're even angry because you realize I was given what? False hope. Yeah, mm-hmm. So I'm glad.
Mr. Stronghold has a question. He says, what if the lower state court cases were published and became binding, the Unpublished Act?
Well, okay, I'm not quite sure what he means by lower state court. You mean, I mean, there's a striation: district court, circuit court, okay, court of appeals, Michigan Supreme Court, okay. Mm-hmm. So the Michigan Supreme Court, their findings are binding on all other courts, okay. Now the Court of Appeals, most of their decisions are unpublished. They aren't published, okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got these 3-judge panels, and these people handle thousands of cases, okay? Mm-hmm. There's not enough space in our law books to put every case that's published, okay? So in the state of Michigan, so if it's an unpublished opinion, it's not binding, but it is persuasive, okay? So mm-hmm. the court rules state that, for example, I had a case where I'm using an opinion of the Court of Appeals from an unpublished. In other words, it's not put into a law book. Okay, it's unpublished. Okay, but the court rules say when you're using an unpublished opinion, you've got to provide that to all parties. Okay, so so for example, the case I'm talking about, it's an unpublished opinion from the Court of Appeals. All right, I have to give that to the judge and the opposing party, which I do, and the judge is not bound by that as he would or she if it was a published opinion from the Court of Appeals, but it's persuasive. So if the person is saying make all unpublished opinions published, that's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Usually, it's published opinions if the decision breaks new grounds or is an interpretation of a statute or constitutional law. If you know, and sometimes I have seen, and you probably have too, Hugo, that the Court of Appeals, I'm talking about, you issue unpublished decisions, and then later on they'll change their mind and decide, oh, this should be published. Or you can file a motion and ask them to, but you have to convince them.
Yeah. I mean, the Court of Appeals has got real great autonomy on that, but you know that they all, of course, they have the right to do it. I've really, all practical person, never seen them go on and do that because, like I said, it's thousands of them. I mean, it's thousands of these cases,
and they've got 3-judge panels all over the state.
Oh yeah, oh man, all you know,
all
geez.
Upper Peninsula, there's Court of Appeals offices.
Yeah. See, and I'm glad, Brother Abdul is saying that. People don't understand. The average citizen don't understand how big this labyrinth is. Okay, I mean, on the Court of Appeals level, okay, and how they've just got a gristmill of cases that are steadily running through it. 93% of them convictions affirmed. Okay, so then leave to appeal. You got to go up and ask the Supreme Court to hear your case, which they won't, by the way, for all intents and purposes. And so, as I told you all before, you better fight for your life on that circuit court level.
Yes.
You know, you better fight for your life as if your life depends on it, because it does. Because if you get hit, you take a hit at that circuit court level, I hate to say it, y'all, the odds are well over 90% that you ain't gonna get no action.
The bar gets higher.
You know, yeah, you won't. And see, another reason the odds are you won't get no action is because I've had so many arguments with prosecutors, which is one reason I wanted to be one, that, well, fair trial, not a perfect trial. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? You see, because I push back on them, a fair trial at a minimum means all of my constitutional rights are protected. All of my constitutional statutory rights are protected. That's a bare minimum. Their pushback to me is, no. Some of your constitutional and statutory rights can be abridged or, you know, or messed over, scuffed up. And as long as it's harmless error, we're good. And so that's that, Roosevelt talked about a day that lives in infamy, December 7th, 1941. And I'm telling you, whoever the mofo was that came up with that term harmless error, they should be in effigy, and people run out the country because they've used that term to justify all manner of injustice, prosecutorial misconduct, withheld evidence, perjured testimony, okay, etc., police misconduct, etc. And the problem with the Court of Appeals is they'll admit, well, yeah, prosecutor really shouldn't have said that to the jury, but it's harmless. What the hell does that mean?
And the theory is it's harmless if there's other untainted evidence of your guilt. So they figure it's not worth the expense to go through a new trial. Yeah, the prosecutor, committed misconduct. But there's this evidence that you committed the crime still. That's in theory, it makes sense, but do I like it? No, because it invites prosecutorial misconduct. And guess what? They already have absolute immunity. The prosecutor can go in court and commit all this misconduct because the prosecutors know, well, on review is subject to harmless error. But guess what? There's DNA that shows that the defendant committed the crime.
Well, yeah, but not only that, you can't say definitively that that comment by the prosecutor that they let go was not the straw that broke the camel's back. So you can't say that. You can't say that. In the mind of a juror, which is what I tell people all the time, that statement by the prosecutor that went unchallenged and uncorrected is enough to say, well, you know what? But the prosecutor did say that he raised a good point, and yeah, guilty. See, so that's my pushback to these people, which is why I'm vilified, but I wear it as a badge of honor.
And you know, I also don't like, I run into this a lot too, Hugo, and I'm sure you have, where when you argue something like that to the appeals court that the prosecutor misstated something in closing arguments, what do they always come back with? But that was the prosecutor's summation. The judge also instructed the jury that the attorney's arguments are not evidence.
Right.
You win, because I agree with you, because a prosecutor is seen as a figure of authority in the court. He wouldn't say that if it wasn't true.
That's right.
And I'm gonna tell you, let me tell you all right now about juries. And I don't have respect for the jury system. And Hugo knows it's much harder to get a jury verdict overturned on appeal than a bench verdict.
Yeah.
Michigan law allows what's called inconsistent verdicts for jury determinations, where the jury can find you not guilty of the underlying crime, but can find you guilty of the felony firearm, and you'd be like, "Whoa, wait a minute, that should have been a consistent verdict." Not in a jury trial. It's a
Yeah.
Jurors are, as you all say, are quicker to convict people than judges in most cases. I mean, and again, if a jury convicts you, the appeals courts don't like to upset the jury's verdict. It's the way it is. I'm sorry. Judges, they will scrutinize more than jurors, because judges are what? They're educated at law, right? They're tasked with a responsibility that is higher than that of a jury. So if a judge makes an error of fact or an error of law, you're likely to get a new trial in a bench trial than a jury. You got to be careful with demanding, I want a jury. I hear defendants say that all the time. They're like, oh, you know what you want, but there's risk with a jury trial for purposes of appeal if you're found guilty. Jury verdicts are very hard to overturn.
Especially when their juries is not even your peers.
Nope. You have to show juror misconduct. Just because you disagree with the jury's verdict, and you can tell the appeals court the jury didn't follow the facts, the court's going to be like, the appeals court's going to be, we don't care. They were the trier of fact. They were the judges. You wanted a jury verdict. And one of the things we were talking, I want to go back to, we were talking about harmless error earlier. You know what? There's two types of constitutional error: harmless error and structural error. Structural error, you don't have to show prejudice, you get an automatic new trial. One of the interesting things is, and this happens a lot, you get an automatic right to a new trial if the judge violates your right to a public trial. So in other words, the appeals courts don't apply the harmless error, but they apply the harmless error in more egregious instances like prosecutorial misconduct. And what does that mean by if the judge violates your right to a public trial? I've seen cases over the years where judges will order the courtroom closed to certain people, members of the public. Legally, they can't do that. That's why they have to walk a fine line. They can manage the proceedings, but if a judge were to say to you, Jay, ma'am, I don't know why you're here. If you're not a party to this case, you have to leave. He gets you out of the courtroom. That defendant, if he's found guilty by the jury, gets a new trial for kicking you out of the courtroom, and you're not related to the parties or anything, because he violated the defendant's right to a fair trial. I've never seen judges go that extreme. I've seen them kick people out of the courtroom. They have, like I said, they have a right to kick you out if you're being disruptive. Yeah, but if they, or the judge thinks that, that's why you see they have to walk a fine line about kicking the media out of the courtroom. A right to a public trial also includes the media. So, but that's interesting that if they do that, you get a new trial, no questions asked. You don't have to show harmless error. So that's called the structural error.
It's not harmless. It's not harmless when you're in prison.
Yeah, it's not harmless when you're in prison.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And so, I want to get some numbers. you know, a lot of times they'll say that there's about 100,000 wrongfully convicted. I don't know where they're pulling the numbers from, but how many do you believe are behind bars wrongfully, just in Michigan alone? And do we how can we even secure that type of data?
I don't know if they keep public records.
I don't know,
I know, I'm just
because to secure that data, they would have to admit there's a problem in the first place. Okay.
Right.
They'd have, which they will never do, by the way. So, we're left to like cases where like what we're talking about now, those few people coming out, and people like these exonerees, as I told you before, which is a misnomer, and so the only thing that I see is forums like this and that man on CNN, where slowly but surely people start to realize, because eventually, what I found is with the system being more explosive on convictions, it's going to get to a point where more and more people are going to either know somebody or be wrongfully convicted themselves.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we don't know. Do we know? Because I know the the CIU does not have a lot of transparency. But do we know how many cases are before them that they're supposed to be investigating?
That's a good question.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, somebody could, I guess, file a FOIA, I imagine,
And you know what? I think that they kicked those FOIAs back, Hugo, because they cite there's an exemption under FOIA that investigative records don't have to be turned over.
Yeah,
They can
right. If that's true, But the prosecutor in Washtenaw County, has pledged to be more open and transparent. So, I can only talk about Washtenaw County. I can't talk about Wayne County, Oakland County, what have you. But with these more, progressive prosecutors, Victoria Roberts ran for prosecutor in Wayne County against Kim Worthy, and that would certainly been a breath of fresh air if that had happened, but it didn't, So I think,
I guess what I'm really trying to get the viewers to really understand how inadequate the oversight is. I mean, we can say it in such a way, but we don't have any numbers.
Victoria,
We don't know how many cases they're reviewing.
No, you don't know unless somebody tells you.
Unless somebody says anything. And then, a question I have is it, and I'm just thinking, some people may be a little afraid, but I feel that to rally, once that case goes before, or at least gets transferred to that unit, when is it time for the people to really rally and maybe make noise so that they can expedite? Is that something that can happen? Will you think they will expedite decisions on it, or is that motivating for them at all, or not?
I don't think so. And by the way, I made a mistake. Victoria Roberts is a former judge. Victoria Burton Harris is the one that ran for Wayne County prosecutor. I apologize, not Victoria Roberts. Victoria Burton Harris. And I'll just give you my take on that, Reverend Tia. There is no massive interest in addressing the rights of the wrongfully convicted. You've got pockets, you've got people that have died or put their lives on the line to fight, okay? And you've got anecdotes and sparse victories. Just like, out of every 10,000 tuna they catch in the net, 5 or 6 escape. I mean, to be somewhat crude about it, okay? So these are 5 or 6 people out of thousands that escape. The other ones, they deserve justice too, but the system is not designed to give it to You know, so for me, when I look at these conviction integrity units, there is no push for greater funding for conviction integrity units. When have you seen some state legislators say, you know what, as a matter of legislative fiat,
they're not going to do it.
We're going to fund another $1 million in 83 counties in the state of Michigan.
They're not going to do it.
They will never, ever, ever do it.
Did I tell you that, Jay?
See?
No.
So
they're not going to do it because that's money. Each one of those prisoners that sits in these counties away from the counties that they live in is money. Right? For those counties.
Right.
They're getting paid.
Right.
And now you're talking about disrupting the flow of money in these areas that wouldn't normally get money or be getting this type of money if these prisons wasn't way out here in these rural areas, because that's mostly where they are, right?
Yeah. Well,
so and they're not going to tell you, they're not going to put it on the website like we have 1,700 cases sitting in front of us, you know, like an innocent clinic or something. They're not going to do that, you know. They've said their integrity, but you don't see the integrity or the transparency of the unit, especially when you got over 100 units. And then you got almost 50 of them that haven't exonerated not one person. You know, what is the purpose of these conviction integrity units if they're not even exonerating anybody? Like, it's just they're formed and they ain't even exonerated nobody. So,
and has there? I just got a question. Has there been monies that are allocated for the unit, for this unit? Are there
not from the legislature?
So there's money, so they're getting paid to do something that they're not doing.
Well, see, that's what I explained to Jay a while back, and I think on this, you know, I told some of the exonerees that when they went up to Lansing a couple of years ago pushing for funding for the CIUs, I said, you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen because of the structure. And what I mean by the structure, county prosecutors are not state employees.
Right.
By statute, they get their funding from the county executive. You're going to the wrong person to ask for the money back.
Yeah.
The legislature is going to take photos with you, and they're going to promise you. They're going to promise you a better day. But it didn't happen, right? You know, like Kim Worthy gets her budget from the Wayne County executive. She doesn't get her funding from the legislature. They can. The legislature can do what it wants. They can say, yeah, we're going to allocate for the Wayne County. We're going to allocate $2 million for Wayne County Conviction Integrity Unit. That money would be dried up in no time. The problem is the Pandora's box has been opened beyond the 37 that's freed, because they realized the magnitude of this problem is that they didn't know in 2018 when they started the Conviction Integrity Unit. They didn't realize the magnitude of the problem. When I say the magnitude of the problem, they didn't think that there were this many innocent people in prison. And so now they're in a panic and they just go silent. We're just going to stop letting people go. We can't take this. Well, you took it when you sent them to prison. Free them. Stop telling us that you don't have money and you don't have the personnel. It's not our problem. And now you're going to make the innocent guy sitting in prison suffering even more because you don't want to do the right thing because, oh, you didn't realize there was that many cases. Oh, yeah, you bet. There is.
You know there's that many cases because you know who the corrupt. Let me tell you, these judges know. I was down there at Frank Murphy, and a lawyer told me, hey, the judges know who the corrupt police are, the police that lie all the time. They know. Just like you know at any job you go to, you're going to know who the slackers are. You know, you work with the people that's lazy. You work with the people who do stuff. So you know. They know. So you can't sit back here and say, well, I didn't know that there were so many cases. When they opened up that unit, they had a 2-year backlog because everybody had applications put in. So please miss us with that you didn't know. You know because you know what kind of people that you have employed. You know what kind of people who are employed in these agencies that do stuff. Now, let's just say you don't want to know or you don't want to deal with because it's overwhelming. That's what it is, okay? But everybody's not dumb to these facts. You have money, you just dragging your feet on this, and you draining the money because you on crap. You taking all this time when you already, if you done put up all the facts and you got all the pictures and all the evidence, but you take another 2 or 3 years to bring this case up. Yeah, you done drain the money out. Of course you have, because you got these cases sitting over here with the evidence and you're not acting on them. And so when we don't hear these stories, when people don't tell their stories, when they don't have somebody advocating for them, but these cases are sitting there and we don't know. When, like you said, Mr. Hakeem, when the media is not reporting, no, they're not reporting on that. That's not a feel-good story. Oh, but they will report on all the crime or, what happened last weekend at the casino, the brawls and all these other things. But when it comes to, innocent people, it's like we don't want to hear about that.
Right. Even the local media, if you notice, there's been a change in their reporting recently. They were on these stories at first. You don't really hear anything now. And you should hear about innocent people who aren't getting any action. The guy that's free, God bless him. Okay, he's free. Why we got to keep hearing about that? But what about these people who trusted the system and weren't released? And don't talk about that. No, don't talk about that. You're trouble if you bring that up. You're bringing up a lot of negativity. Yeah, the truth is negativity. I understand. I'm going to stand on the side of truth. But again, about these conviction integrity units, I agree with you on that. That evidently they knew it was a problem. They formed the unit. They knew there was going to be a lot of numbers, but I agree with you, Jay. They're acting like they didn't know this problem was going to be this bad. But again, I want people who are listening and watching, be careful, trusting that process. By the time they close their file, if they don't give your loved one any action, you done tipped your hand to them. Your lawyer gave them your evidence, your defense, and now the appellate division can prepare to challenge your claim at the evidentiary hearing because you didn't told them everything. You even let them interview your witnesses. Your lawyer even let them interview you without their presence. We had a guy that he told me that they interviewed him twice, and he said they grilled me. And I was like, "Was your lawyer there?" He said, "No." I said, "Oh my God, your lawyer let them interview you." I mean, you don't have to drive to the prison. Everything's done on Zoom. Why would you put your client at risk like that? But this is what's going on. And again, like I said, and so now you're scared. Now you're really scared. Oh, I didn't let them interview my witnesses. I don't know what my witnesses told them. I gave them, all the documentary evidence. And now we get ready to go to the evidentiary hearing. Yeah, you're getting ready to go to the evidentiary hearing. And now the appellate prosecutor who's going to walk in on that hearing has a file of all of their interview notes with your witnesses, copies of everything that you claim is new evidence, and they're prepared to challenge your evidence now.
Right. They don't have to do any work. You done did all the work and gave them all the answers.
Yes. And so you're asking them for anything, they're not going to give it to you. So, well, I think Thelonious was another one that was in front of. Was he in front of the CIU or not? I can't remember. Mark Craighead was one. They denied him relief. He went in front of the judge, and the judge let him go. So the tide has changed now, where defendants are realizing, screw that CIU. They're not going to give me any action. Look at the rates that people are getting released by the judges now.
And the judges are exonerated.
The judge, Thelonious Thurston was exonerated.
Right.
Paul Clark, the It would have been best had the judge dismissed the charge and let him walk. But still, what he gave him was better than what he had. He gave him a new trial. So if a judge, and some of those judges, they will do it. They give you this. And by the way, Thelonious Cersei got a better deal than the people who were freed from the CIU, because guess what? The judge dismissed his case with prejudice, which means they can never recharge him for that, right, for those murders.
Right.
So,
well, people, I don't want to get you down, but we just got to be honest.
Well,
we have to have these conversations with our family members and stuff, because just because it's not happening to you, just because you're not involved, just because it's not happening to your loved one, doesn't mean it can't happen to you. You could be walking down the street like Gerard and get accused of a crime you didn't do. You could be sitting in Burger King like one is honoree. He was eating his lunch and somebody accused him of a crime. You could be 400 miles away in another state. Like Dwayne Brooks was in another state and accused of a murder somewhere in a whole different state. So yes, these things happen more so than ever. And, just because people are not talking about the ones that's are, tickets or misdemeanors or stuff like that, they happen. And we have to do our due diligence. We have to get out here and start paying attention. We have to get out here and start voting for judges. We got to look who is running for judge. Like, we have to actually do this stuff. And if we don't, what happens when it's you?
And check their background. Those judges have a background. Check their. Do your research. I mean, if you can get on Facebook and get on social media, you should be able to do this, especially in this information age. You don't have to walk to a library and open a book like we used to back in the old days. And I did it because I wanted to what? I wanted knowledge. I wanted to know. I got books right behind me. But I get on, this stuff is at your fingertips. Don't wait until it blows up. Don't wait until it happens and say, how come you guys didn't tell us the CIU works that way? Well, I mean, do you want to know now, or do you want to know later on when you're disappointed? Your choice.
Mr. Stronghold asks, how many days do you have to file an appeal in your state?
Appeal from what? Circuit court?
Once you're convicted.
Very short.
Normally 42 days.
42 days, that's it. And at that time, you got to ask for a lawyer too, because your trial lawyer doesn't go up to the Court of Appeals with you unless you retain them and can pay them again. And that's not cheap. 42 days is a very short window.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you, I don't know.
J-Love, let me, I'm sorry. Are we into our closing comments now, J-Love? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Attorney Matt.
Okay, let me say this. What we got to understand is, and what I hope all the people of conscience listening, is to always expose the sheer hypocrisy in the rail against wrongfully convicted people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You have a candidate for the highest office in the land from a political party that is in Georgia, New York, Florida, maybe that's it. Okay. And forgive me if I'm missing a state. 88 some total allegations. Okay. You have that person and nearly 45% of the population saying all those charges are corrupt. Now, I want all good people of conscience to understand the import of that. Okay. No prosecutor has got the authority for someone to go to trial. That decision is made, if it's a grand jury, first by them, if there's enough evidence, or like in the state of Michigan, a district court judge deciding if there's probable cause, okay? A prosecutor can charge whatever they want, okay? It doesn't mean that person has to go to trial unless you've got a judiciary system that is willing to push that case along. So the import of that is, if you've got a person and a political party that says the entire system is corrupt, that means those grand juries in all those jurisdictions are corrupt. That means the judges that let the case go to trial and let the prosecutor have a chance to prove their case is corrupt. That means the state prosecutors or the county prosecutors, Fani Willis, and the federal prosecutor, Mr. Smith, is corrupt. So for you to accuse Prosecutor Smith of being corrupt, that means you're saying the Department of Justice itself is corrupt, all right? Is corrupt. For you to say Fani Willis is corrupt, that means her entire office is corrupt. For you to say the charges are bogus in the kangaroo court, that means every one of those members in those grand juries in those 3 states, they're corrupt too. So my question is, for good people of faith listening, if this man of privilege and money can talk about the system is so damn corrupt, he don't have a fair chance, what the hell would let you sit back and let them tell you the system is corrupt for the man of privilege, but it cannot be corrupt for a man or woman of unprivilege? That's my question. That's my question. Okay? So all you people of goodwill, put that in your shotgun, double barrel, I hope, loaded for bear. And the next time that bullshit, excuse me, is run on you, say, wait a minute. You saying my son or my brother can't be innocent because he's charged? Are you one of them people saying the man running for president, he's getting railroaded all over the damn country, but my son, you know, or my daughter working in minimum wage, struggling, it's impossible for them to get railroaded, but it's possible for this man to get railroaded.
That's part of that privilege attitude.
Of course it is.
Who also called for the execution of the Central Park Five.
That's right. They will never, ever, ever admit that, y'all. You know, and so God bless y'all. I'm through, but you know, hey brother, good seeing you again, man. You know, and so that's it, y'all. Don't stop fighting. It ain't over till we win. That's what my late mother would tell me. Son, it ain't over till you win. Yeah.
We aim to win, but even if we lose, we know we did our best.
Yeah. You know, and we set the stage for somebody else. You know, and along that same line, that's why I ran for prosecutor. One of the reasons, county prosecutor. Okay, I didn't have the $100,000 like them other people had, but without me being in that race, the issue of wrongfully convicted and the plight of the wrongfully convicted, it don't even come up. It don't even come up. You understand? So, you know, Al Sharpton made it clear, without my candidacy for president, a lot of these social justice issues wouldn't even come up. So keep on bringing it up, y'all.
Yeah.
That's right.
We have to remember, we forget stuff so quick, and then history repeats itself again, and we wonder why is this happening now? Because how soon we forget, we get so comfortable in our everyday lives. We got the house now, we got the car now. You know, me and Reverend Tia was having this conversation. Like, you know, we in our comfortable little, you know, areas of life, and we forget about those things that are still happening because we're comfortable until you become uncomfortable. We don't want you to wait until you become uncomfortable. Like, these are things that we need to focus on now. We have children and our children, and those who are coming behind us that we need to protect. And we need to be changing these systems and how people are operating and thinking. And if we get lazy and don't do our due diligence, we're having these conversations about people sitting in prison almost 40 years for crimes that they didn't do. And we sitting back like, how did this happen? That's because we stopped paying attention and doing the work.
Yeah. We stopped asking the pertinent question, demanding answers. And I think this is where we are, So I'm just really prompting people to begin to demand these answers and demand them from our leaders. Why don't we know how many people have submitted appeals? How come we don't have that type of transparency in Michigan? I don't know about any other states, but how many cases, how many people are saying that I've been wrongfully convicted or overly convicted? How come we don't know these kinds of numbers? How come we don't know who's behind bars and how many people that have gone before the conviction integrity unit? How come we don't know that? These aren't difficult questions. This is just being accountable, having that type of transparency. We have to report our numbers on how much money we make, and if you receive money through some type of electronic or application, we have to make a report. But if this is not happening at a leadership level, people who are supposed to be in service to taxpayers. And I just really believe that we need to hone in on these types of questions and demand answers. And because there's not going to be, how can you even fix this? How can you fix it? And, especially when you have somebody who is, it's a conflict of interest for me, the prosecuting attorney, lack of independence to conduct some type of impartial investigation, the perception of bias that is already going in on the cases that they're looking over, and inadequate oversight all the way.
That's because
we need change. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if we really knew the numbers, if they put those numbers out here, people would actually probably be concerned. People will start paying attention. They don't want you to pay attention.
Yeah.
But if we knew those real numbers, if we knew that there was 3,000 or 4,000 cases sitting down there at the integrity unit, people would be like in shock. Like, really? Oh my God, that many people? We see 1 or 2 people coming home, and in our minds, 1 or 2 people, we don't think it's that many. We heard the statistics that saying it's 2 to 10% of the people incarcerated is possibly wrongful convicted. But we don't know how many cases are sitting around here that's waiting or pending. We don't know, because I think if we really knew, if the citizens really knew, they would be in shock. They would be demanding answers, and that would disrupt the system. That means there would be the cause for accountability. Why is it that many cases? What is going on? So people are going to be asking for some transparency that they are not willing to give.
J Love, can I just interject this one thing here, please?
Mm-hmm.
The brutal reality of it is they had hell trying to get money out of Wayne County to analyze rape kits. I don't know if y'all remember that or not. Mm-hmm. You remember the woman that plays Victoria Benson on Special Victims Unit?
Right.
Marissa somebody, okay?
Yeah.
You all probably remember she came to Wayne County and met with Kim Worthy, okay? Right. And spearheaded getting grants and money for rape kits. And they had a hell of a time doing that, because they closed down that Detroit crime lab, that Wayne County crime lab. Rampant incompetence, if my memory serves me right, and correct, if my memory serves me right. So let me tell you something. If they had a hell of a time getting money to try to vindicate the rights and humanity of women that have been violated, do you really think the political will is there to get money to vindicate the rights of throwaway people?
Oh.
No.
And that's why that's the difference between the rape kit unit and the conviction integrity unit. And I pointed that out to people before. I don't want to hear that they don't have funding because, you know, this prosecutor hit the ground and raised all that money for the rape kit investigations. Convicted people. We didn't hear anybody get free who probably was wrongfully convicted out of those rape kits. You're not going to hear about them either. But how come she's not using as much? How come she's not to raise money for the conviction integrity unit? Because, like Hugo said, do you really think they have a heart to free a lot of people? No, they're going to free a few, you know. But my thing is, you know, everybody thinks their story is the one worth telling, and don't talk about people like Dwayne Ballinger and Paul Clark. Oh no, because you know, tell my story because I won, and it's like I said, it's grown stick by now. I don't know if I'm the only one that's noticed this. I'm like, nobody's getting out. I don't know what people are waiting on to. I don't know what it's going to take. Just sitting back, just, you know, crossing your fingers and going on these promises, and you're being told to wait, watch, and listen. She's busy. Give her a chance. You've been hearing that for how many years? Come on.
They don't have any priority for the innocent.
No, not a priority.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't have any priority for the innocent.
And mind you, I even know that not everybody who shops wrongful conviction is innocent. I will agree. But the few cases, like Paul Clark, Devontae Sanford, Dwayne Ballinger, there's a lot. I'm going to speak up for those cases. Temujin Kinsu, oh my God. Can you get any more bold?
Yeah.
Can you get any more evil? Can you get any more insensitive to innocence? Those
Right.
cases, they need a voice. We're not talking about somebody who you know, got this witness and now she wants to give an affidavit, and then when you interview that witness, you find out, oh, okay, so you want to do somebody a favor. But you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I have a pretty good judge of assessing credibility myself, and I tell all of these people, like I told Paul Clark, I'm putting my name behind your case and advocating for you, even though I didn't work on your case. My reputation is at stake, but I'm going to do it if it's worth it. If I believe somebody is innocent, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll do that. And everybody should. Because like you said, you don't know if it'll be your loved one tomorrow. So
Yes. You guys, this was a tough conversation, but necessary. And Mr. King, I thank you for, you know, having the courage to come in and tell the truth.
much fun. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and you will be back in a week or two to talk about the next case that we got. That's another injustice. Hopefully, I can have Miss Diane on because she wrote the article about that case as well. You guys, we just have to do our part. We have to do our part. We have to be able to stand up, lend our voices for those that's for injustice. We cannot just sit around and act like it's not you, because it could be you.
Yeah, good.
It could be you. Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. Anything else, you guys, before we leave tonight? Attorney Matt?
We're sleepy.
Look,
we talked ourselves into a sleep.
Look. I'm saying this. As a criminal defense attorney, primarily, you know, I fight against convictions, you know. I fight against convictions. But there's an exception to every rule. There's a case going on in New York right now. I watch that regularly. And I have to be honest, I've never wanted a mofo to be convicted more in my life than I do right now.
Ooh-wee.
So, hey, look here, y'all. So don't pull my criminal defense attorney pass card right away, okay? Judge me on my past deeds and don't castigate me for this one thing. But I'm gonna say it again. In the brief years I've been in this profession, I have never, ever wanted a mofo to be convicted more than I do from that cat in New York, okay? So, J Love, hope you don't ban me from the show, but it's out there now, y'all. I can't help it.
Attorney Matt, you remind me of Brian Stevenson's quote: "The rich and guilty has more, power than those and seem innocent than those that are innocent and poor."
That's right. Absolutely.
And we're seeing that played out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. If my black behind had jumped up and even talked about the judge's daughter wearing a short skirt, y'all will be interviewing me from one of them jail cells. Okay.
Right.
You see, and if I was in the South and jumped up and did some of that stuff to the judge, they might have my black ass hanging from the highest limb behind the courthouse. See, so I'm sorry. But
Right.
this privilege that this mofo is doing is outrageous.
I've never seen it this bad.
Simply outrageous.
And they keep telling him to basically shut up, and he won't. He's not.
The lines aren't blurred anymore between the privilege and
Hey, y'all, and look here. I will buy everybody on this panel a steak dinner. Well, no, not steak dinner. A chicken dinner at the Kentucky Fried Chicken of your choice with a drink and one of them little apple pies if this mofo take the witness stand. He talking, okay. Hold me to my word, Brother Abdul. Hold me to my word. If this mofo take the witness stand, he out there telling people, I can't wait to get on the stand. I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of this. Okay, mofo. They will crucify and fillet your big ass.
I don't know. He's arrogant enough that I can see him stupidly getting on that stand. And that's
brother, you raise a good point because you raise a good point, but I'm still thinking they're gonna pull his big ass down, farting all on that chair before he can get up.
He won't be able to withstand it though.
You know what?
He ain't gonna be. He's gonna tell on himself.
Well,
he talks like Bart Simpson. You think he would make a good witness on the witness?
Look.
He tells on himself every day.
Look here. I'm willing to buy y'all a KFC dinner. Only 2-piece, not 3. Only 2-piece. Okay.
I bet he will take it.
Okay, you know what, brother? I'll drive to Detroit to buy you a dinner, and gladly do so. Gladly do so.
Well, that's a date because he's so arrogant. He thinks he's above it all. He thinks he can handle that prosecutor.
Well,
it's like mouth open, foot in.
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't go back on my word. My promise to y'all is true. And you know what? I hope y'all win. I do.
Me too.
I only want him to take it so that prosecutor can rip him up. I mean, he thinks he can go up against a veteran prosecutor.
Right.
That's the arrogance, right?
Right. That's right. That's right. So yeah. Anyway, God bless y'all.
God bless you.
Thank you, everyone, and
thank you, Jay.
Reverend T, I got my eye on you, girl. I got my eye on you.
Thank you, Ms. Abdul. I'll see you
I want
soon.
us to win.
And Reverend Hugo Mack, Attorney Hugo Mack.
I'll
see
accept
you guys.
that. I'll accept that.
Okay. I'll see you guys next Friday. Peace.
Hey, all right. God bless y'all. Be safe.
All
All
right.
right. God bless you.
All right.